Hello and welcome back to CBR MTG. My name is Angus Mackay and I'm joined here by Philip Nicholson.
Hello.
And today we are doing something very special once again. We are doing the Eternal Masters Weekend at Next Level Games in Dandenong. This is a yearly tradition at the game store where it's basically one of the bigger Eternal events of the year for Australian Magic players, and one of the more notable scenes for competitive Highlander in Australia as well. So 56 players for this event, for the Highlander event, and on the left we have Dougal Warby on Blue Moon, and on the right we have JP on JP Storm, JP Kelly. So Phil, why don't you take us through? Let's take us through Blue Moon and tell us how it works, how it ticks.
Sure. So Blue Moon's control deck in blue and red that's trying to use a control game from all its blue cards coupled with the powerful non-basic hate of cards like Blue Moon and Back to Basics to sometimes just kind of pull out free wins against the decks with the greedier mana bases.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot more blue than red, but you can definitely find a lot of different styles of the same deck. Some leaning more towards burn, and some going down the control route, as you've mentioned before. So I believe Dougal's going down the control route with cards like Cryptic Command and Dig Through Time. And yeah, just a lot of removal. On his top end, we have Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and Niv Mizzet, which is going to be really exciting to see, hopefully. Otherwise, points are split across True Name Nemesis, Snapcaster Mage, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Force of Will, Mana Drain, just sort of your blue stew, as it's sometimes mentioned, where you split your points across powerful blue cards. On the right, we have JP John Paul Kelly playing JP Storm. Apparently, our players have been forced to use the signature Legend of Zelda playmat for the product placement, I suppose.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, JP's playing a very dedicated Storm deck. He's splitting his points across Black Lotus, which is 4 points, and Yawgmoth's Will, which is 3 points. So, Phil, you want to run us through Storm and tell us how it works?
Yeah, so Storm, just like in any other format you may have seen it, you're trying to cast a bunch of spells in one turn, and then you want to cast a spell with the reasonably designed keyword Storm on it that copies itself for all the other spells cast that turn, and kill your opponent after you played the game by yourself for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And JP really rocking the expensive version of Storm deck. Storm is, of course, having a Black Lotus in it definitely drives up the price, but JP's going all the way with this black bordered dual lands, and if I'm not mistaken, there's quite a lot of foils in this deck as well.
They are also almost all foreign foils.
Oof, must be nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of Russian in that deck.
Yeah, I think when you've been playing the same deck for quite some time, like a lot of Highlander players have been, they sort of, the deck is named JP Storm, so pretty reasonably it was made by JP and Jean Paul, and like he's taken the time to really like make this deck his own by spending thousands of dollars on it.
Yeah, I mean it's not Magic the Gathering Eternal unless it comes with a hefty price tag, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. So we're seeing a Vendilion Click, one of the first spells cast by Dougal, and it reveals a Mind's Desire and another card.
Brain Freeze.
Brain Freeze, perfect. So a Storm card, so 2 Storm cards and a Lotus Petal and Mox Diamond. So it's kind of coming along nicely. I mean, at worst, you could sort of Mind's Desire for 3. Probably don't have the mana for that right now, but in the future...
Well, it's only 6, so
okay.
With 1 more mana to make the diamond turn on, you could do it.
You also get a redraw off the egg, so
yeah,
not completely reasonable.
I'm honestly pretty surprised Dougal left that Desire there, because JP is pretty close to casting it, and a Desire for even 3 or 4 is pretty terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you ever hit one of those pointed cards like the Black Lotus or the Yorg's Will, like could be pretty game over for Dukes. Dukes hitting up that Brainstorm in his turn, found a Spell Pierce and stuff. He should be pretty favoured in this matchup, no?
I'm not really sure. I haven't played that much of the matchup from either side. I feel like it's definitely one of those matchups where just the player execution is really important, and making sure that you don't tap out as the control player until you know you're safe. You've Gataxi improved your opponent or something, and you know that it's safe to do so there.
Yeah.
But on the same token, the Storm player has tools to beat control. There's silence effects. There's access to Duresses and Inquisitions if you want them. That mean that you can definitely force your way through a control player.
Yeah. It seems that besides Gataxian Probe, JP's only playing Abeyance main board, probably going for sort of a all-in, hope you don't counter my spells game one, and then in the sideboard it gets a little bit easier with some Duresses, as you mentioned, and Pirate and some Blasts.
Carpet of Flowers, also a really powerful sideboard option that might go overlooked, but it just accelerates your mana so much that you can kind of use it to set up, I guess, like 2 combo starts much earlier than you should be able to, and your control opponent just doesn't have the mana to compete.
Yeah. It looks like we're seeing a Brain Freeze targeting himself, possibly setting up for a... is he playing Mizzix's Mastery in this list? He might not be, but definitely York's Will.
There's York's Will, there's possibly like Threshold cards, things like that. It's Past in Flames. There's basically just no reason to Brain Freeze your opponent unless it's lethal, and you don't have access to like Past in Flames to just Tundles your opponent. So the instances in which you would do that are pretty rare. That's a Riku sitting on top of the
it's
real Recoup.
Pretty lucky for him. Recoup, for anyone who doesn't know, is a 1 and a red for a sorcery. Target sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. And then it also has flashback itself, so a pretty good hit from JP, all things considered.
Yeah, it's not something that I actually recall seeing in the Storm decks until pretty recently. I think it's either I've missed it earlier, or it might have something to do with Wheel of Fortune dropping to 0. It just gives it that 1 extra really powerful sorcery that it can hit, and we do see that wheel in the graveyard as one of the many options for a recoup if it's happening. But
it looks like he might be going for it.
Well, he's probably just going for the Desire first.
Yeah, definitely may as well.
The old Chromox to get a copy of Mind's Desire.
Yeah, the Chromox imprinting nothing, just sitting on there, but adding to the Storm count, which is very, very relevant. So we're seeing Mind's Desire for 5, I think, or maybe even just 4. But could be enough for him to continue to go off, depending on what he draws. So we did see the Abeyance, which is fantastic.
Abeyance is only fantastic if you then hit with the rest.
For sure.
So unless this Brainstorm is impossibly good, I don't think JP is going off here.
Yeah, he does have... yeah, that's true. He does get a little mana with the Desperate Ritual. He might be able to...
It's just all red is the problem.
Yeah, that's true. He doesn't have any more mana for the Recoup as well. He can't flash anything back. He may as well Brainstorm and then set up for next turn. He's still counting Storm, which kudos to him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he could hit... I don't think Empty the Warren's his main board, but if it was, and he managed to pull another piece of mana out of somewhere, just dropping that would be fine.
He still does get that land drop as well.
MT is actually main board, so if that happened to be one of the cards, you manage to hit off the Abeyance plus the Brainstorm, and you can... I think he may have played a land for turn. No, he wouldn't, because he would have discarded it to the Diamond. Yeah, I mean,
he discarded this land here, but...
There's definitely no reason to not keep counting Storm.
Oh, for sure. You may as well until it goes out, but it looks like he drew that Empty the Warrens off the top, which is pretty fantastic for him. I mean, pretty lucky all in all. Like, it's kind of got to be this, because he's got the perfect amount of mana, he's got the Abeyance. It's this or nothing, and I think at Storm count 9, maybe, I think we're at... 9 and 9, yeah, so Storm counts 9. Well, technically Storm counts 8, and then the extra copy of Warren's on top, but 18 Goblins, pretty good.
Good. I mean, there's possibly something like a Fiery Confluence in Dougal's deck to allow him to deal with this.
Yeah,
but
that
I
would
imagine
actually-
there's not more than maybe one of that kind of effect in the main deck.
It seems like
Sweltering Suns, I think, is the more common mainboard inclusion these days.
Yeah.
Over the Confluence, but
he might even be in a position to race. I mean, unfortunately for JP, 18 is not 19, and Dougal's currently at 19 life, so as long as he's careful with his life total, and maybe he can hit a Cryptic Command or something just to tap down the team, but he could probably just race at this point.
Yeah, that's certainly not impossible. He does have JP dead in 2 swings or 1 swing at any point of burn.
Yeah.
So
He does need to phase it. He does need to phase an attack step though, just once.
Well, no, because the
Oh, of
18,
course,
the 18
yeah,
would
sorry.
drop into 1. So as long as he has a point of burn, and JP doesn't, which JP... I mean, if JP swings for 18 and then just hard cast Tendrils for the win, that would be incredibly sweet.
I would be very impressed. What do we have in our graveyard? We have so we have Recoup is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can basically cast a 1-drop, which probably is just nothing. So yeah, I don't think we have the Recoup line at all, which is unfortunate. But he's got cards in his hand still, so Rhystic Study is a pretty good one.
Yeah, well, Rhystic Tutor.
Rhystic Tutor, that's right. Not Rhystic
Study is definitely the blue one. And Dougal not seeing the 2 mana required to pay
Oof.
is that's a bit of a spicy one.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty. I mean, I want to say lucky, but never mind. I take back what I said about being lucky. Yeah, I mean that would have definitely lost him the game. But hopefully we'll be able to rely on these 18 goblins to take him the rest of the way, because I think JP's luck in drawing has definitely run out.
Yeah, I mean, Dougal has 3 cards he can look at to see a point of burn. Interesting that JP elected to leave 1 goblin behind.
Maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. There's not a whole lot of hasty threats, but I guess he could be.
Well, there's also just 6 points. I guess it's actually possible he's playing around exactly Goblin Rabblemaster. I have seen that in these Blue Moon lists before.
Yeah, that's
And,
pretty good.
A
Look at
Rabblemaster or a Legion Loyalist would be that lethal point of damage, and that doesn't change the clock to add additional body.
Yeah, that's true. And looks like, and also obviously, if you're swinging for 17 or swinging for 18, it's not a huge amount of difference.
Exactly. Unless it's actually the lethal point. Leaving back 1 blocker doesn't really cost JP anything.
Yeah, it looks like Dougal's got a lot of looks for this burn spell that he's looking for. He just used his Jace, which is partially obscured by the deck box, and now he's gone for a dig through time. So I mean, we just need 1 point of burn, and it is partially a burn deck. We don't have a lot, but we do have some.
I mean, personally, I'd really like to see a Price of Progress, so that he's forced to draw the game out. But I don't think that's not usually something the Blue Moon players are going to do unless they're really forced into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like he's got a lightning bolt.
It looks like that's a lightning bolt he's managed to pick up there.
Yeah, must be good.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, pretty close for that one, and if the Yogg's Will resolved, then he'd be in pretty decent stead, but
Yeah, I think JP just got a little unlucky off that Mind's Desire. It
Some pretty dubious hits,
it went okay and did make 18 goblins, but it definitely could have been a lot better than it was.
Yeah. I know that the the making a goblins plan is usually like a pretty fine plan B, but it's definitely not your highest priority, giving your opponent 1 or 2 turns to try and find a way out.
Yeah, obviously killing your opponent is better than making a bunch of goblins.
Depends on how many sweet goblin tokens you have.
That's true.
Going into sideboards now, on Dougal's side we have 1 Ancestral Vision and Anger of the Gods, Batterskull, Echoing Truth, and Snaring Bridge, Fiery Confluence, Goblin Cratermaker, Hydroblast, Is It Staticcaster, Null Rod, Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, Relic of Progenitus, Tormoid Script, and Treachery. Definitely some interesting cards on his part. On JP's side, we have Abrupt Decay, Ad Nauseam, Assassin's Trophy, Carpet of Flowers, Collective Brutality, Defense Grid, Duress, Firespout, Flusterstorm, Monastery Mentor, Pyroclasm, Red Elemental Blast, Tarmogoyf, Thoughtseize, and Vendilion Click. Phil, what do you think looks good for the Blue Moon player?
Dougal is definitely skimped on the combo hate in his sideboard. All he's really got is the graveyard hate in Relic of Bananas and Tormod's Crypt. The red blasts aren't even fantastic against Storm. Like, they can hit a Brainstorm or something, but a lot of the time they just miss when your opponent just casts a bunch of rituals and tendrils.
Yeah.
And Nullrod, again, is okay. It does hit Lotus, it hits all the eggs, and hits, Lotus Petal and Chrome Box. But it's definitely not a slam this and win the game. So I think that he's definitely not got a whole lot here to bring in against a Storm opponent.
Yeah, I think he's probably just hoping that his mass amount of counterspells will take him there. Is there any reason, do you think, to bring in either is it Staticaster or a Fiery Confluence or something like that, just in case JP goes for the Goblin Storm again?
Yeah, I can see definitely bringing in Staticaster. I think Confluence maybe it's just a bit too much mana, and he does have the Sweltering Suns main board as well.
Sweltering Suns definitely seems like a better sort of card to have main board, considering you can cycle it away.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you might bring in Confluence over the Staticaster because it does help you race if you just dome them for 6.
Yep.
But given the fact that it's also not a plan A for the Storm deck to make goblins in the first place, you might just not bring in any more of that kind of effect.
Yeah.
You don't really need it.
Just hope that they don't have it. And on JP's side, we're probably looking at some amount of permanent-based hate, so Abrupt Decay. Kind of got to go in a weird line, because you'll probably bring in Abrupt Decay, probably bring in Assassin's Trophy. I think we talked about bringing Carpet of Flowers, which seemed like a good idea as well, but then you also got to work up against the control player with, your Thoughtseize, Duress. Maybe even a Tarmogoyf could be okay, but you definitely don't want to dilute your combo too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tarmogoyf is great here against a red control player. They don't have any particularly good ways to remove it without a counterspell. And even if they, if they had that kind of creature removal, it's usually something that you sideboard out at least a good chunk of against Storm, as their creature light, in that they usually play about 2. I think that a lot of the cards that JP has access to in the sideboard have potential to be brought in, but things like Tarmogoyf and Vendilion Clique are a bit of a mind game as well. So it's always it's a plan B that you have access to, and you can bring it in, and you can not, and it's kind of a decision that it's never, I guess, really wrong or right to bring a card like that in. It's just a thing that you have access to if you think your opponent has kind of sideboarded out a bit too much.
Yeah, that seems
that
reasonable.
kind of way to interact with you.
I like Monastery Mentor a lot, just as a way to get slow Storm.
I mean, it's not even really that slow, so...
Yeah, that's true. You can definitely kill your opponent in a couple of turns. Is there any new cards from 2020 that you think might fit into the Storm deck?
I'll be perfectly honest and say I've barely read the 2020 spoiler, so I have no idea. You're probably referring to Scheming Symmetry, though.
Yeah, I think Scheming Symmetry would be definitely good. I was actually partially thinking of Aria of Flame, but that's out of Modern Horizons, but still could be a pretty decent sideboard plan as well. Just getting slow Storm, putting a Grape Shot on the end of every spell is pretty decent.
That's the enchantment that gives your opponent 10 life when you play it, and then every time you do a thing, it ticks up and damages them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get somewhat blown out if your opponent removes it with an Abrupt Decay or something.
Yeah, you have to work extra hard to get them back down.
Yeah, I mean... Although, on the flip side, a lot of the time, as a Storm player, if you're in a position where you can Tendrils for 10 and kill them, Tendrilsing for 15 isn't actually that much harder once you're at that kind of breakpoint.
Yeah, definitely. There is a point where you can just stop and say, alright, well, I'll just cast Tendrils now.
Yeah, once you get to a certain point, the difference between, Tendrils for 10 or 11 and Tendrils for 30, it's just actually the number of game actions you're forced to take.
That's right. Yeah, could be a consideration for sure, but I do like what JP took to this event, and I think some of these decisions were really prone and definitely stood the test of time, especially Carpet of Flowers, just being a way to get more mana and sort of prevent your opponent from starving you of as many resources as they try to do with the Blood Moon / Back to Basics plan.
Yeah, it's great against any blue deck really, and it's particularly good against this kind of blue deck that wants to hurt your mana base in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Impulse for JP, just setting up his hand now. It's definitely impossible for him to go off on turn 1 and turn 2.
It's not impossible. It's just really hard.
You would have to have the God Hand, God Draws.
I've definitely seen turn 2s. I don't think I've seen a turn 1, but I know it's theoretically possible.
Sure.
I think the big issue with a turn 1 or turn 2 for this kind of Storm deck is a lot of the time you don't know if you'll hit just based on the 7 cards in your hand. You then have to have to chain a couple of draws that are one of a couple of cards, and you can definitely brick.
Yeah. So
it's usually safer to wait an extra turn and know you're 100% rather than your 60%.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Black Lotus, crack it, get Yog's Will, get back Black Lotus definitely leads you into some pretty fast wins.
You should probably do some other things before you cast the Yog's Will.
Turn. It's just a free game action.
Yeah, no, that is actually pretty good.
You can flash it back later with Recoup, it's fine.
Ooh, that's some that is some powerful Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, that's right. JP thinking quite over this brainstorm, not sharing the information in his hand with us, but we can be sure there's some manner of mana and spells. It seems like he has a Doomsday in hand, which is pretty interesting. Kind of a little bit hard to cast now with his current situation, but he's only another land drop or ritual away from sort of powering out that Doomsday. It doesn't look like he actually has any specific Doomsday wins that just win by themselves. There's no Lab Maniac in this list, and there's no sort of Spicy Emrakul, which of course would probably be a bad idea in this list, but it's possible. If you Mind's Desire, it could be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some Highlander players who would just throw an Emrakul in there and assume it'll turn out okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta believe.
Yeah, if you just Mind's Desire into it, or you just cast enough rituals.
If you cast enough rituals.
It's just free.
Yeah,
it's free real estate.
It's basically free real estate. Also, if you want to continue to combo off and you have nearly no cards in deck, you can just discard Emrakul and go again. And this is what we believe that JP was a bit worried about, because he doesn't really have that green mana for Carpet of Flowers if he did have that Carpet of Flowers, although it would generate him a pretty decent amount of mana at this very point in time. I think the amount of basics that he has in his deck is quite lacking.
I think it's interesting that he's elected to fetch in response to the Blood Moon, but it looks like he's found a Badlands, which is still a non-basic land.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe if he is able to get rid of the Blood Moon somehow, it looks pretty dire from the situation.
If he's able to get rid of the Blood Moon, then
he'd still have a Marshlands.
Sure.
That's definitely
so I guess.
Oh, he wanted the red mana to cast Pyroblast.
Oh, I see. And the Volcanic Mountain and the Underground Mountain would not have been able to make that red mana.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think it might just be that he wants the card in Graveyard to get him closer to Threshold for a Cabal Ritual or something like that.
Yeah, that could definitely be reasonable.
And doesn't value the Point of Life as much as he values a card in the Graveyard, which is certainly not an unreasonable choice.
I think not having any basics is probably totally fine, considering the amount of artifacts that he has that makes mana. He's got a lot of eggs, including actual eggs and Chromatic Star and Sphere, as well as Black Lotus and Mox Diamond. So it's not just game over for him at the moment.
Yeah. A Blood Moon against this deck is definitely not GG, go next.
Yeah,
but it's certainly a pain.
Absolutely.
But it's not a card that has to be removed before the game can be won.
Speaking of which, Energy Flux from... Oh no, that's a miscalculation.
Yeah.
That's okay. Energy Flux would be a little bit more dubious.
Energy Flux is fine too. It's an upkeep cost in your artifacts.
Sure.
So you just don't play your artifacts until you're ready to go off.
Yeah, which is usually what they try to do.
JP has all this spare red mana anyway. What else is he going to do with it?
What is he going to do with it exactly? City of Traders is an interesting choice from the Blue Moon player, but I guess if you're getting your Blood Moon out a turn earlier, it seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's a great card with Blood Moon. powers out that Blood Moon earlier and then turns into a mountain, doesn't have to sacrifice itself.
Yep.
If Dougal's on the Blood Sun plan, it's even better with that card because it still taps for 2. It just doesn't lose the ability that makes it sacrifice itself.
Yeah, that's pretty spicy. It's
Yeah.
pretty spicy tech if it was playing it. I think that there's a lot of utility to Blood Sun, and I think it might be underplayed. But I mean, probably the results just speak for themselves, and that's not the case.
I think that the problem with Blood Sun is that you in a deck like Blue Moon, for example, you're still really incentivized to play a lot of fetches. You don't mind if your fetches become mountains after your Blood Moon,
Yeah,
but you do mind if your fetches don't have any text after your Blood Sun.
yeah, that's a good point. We're seeing a remand from Dougal.
Yeah,
It does add to Storm count, and it does. He can still cast.
Yeah, he's
it
got
again.
plenty. He's got plenty of red mana to spare, I think. So, I believe he can recast that Poetic
Yeah.
Ritual. It's possible that he doesn't have enough red mana anymore. Yeah, so he could recast the Poetic Ritual. I believe that's what he was casting, but he doesn't then have enough mana to do whatever he wants after.
Yeah. So
It's just
a lot
it
of
might
maths.
have actually been a Seething Song he was trying to cast, so he was a little bit short.
Okay, yeah, definitely. If it was a Seething Song, he'd be short. Thoughtseize off the top would be good if he wanted to devote his Chromatic Star to that 1 black mana, but yeah, it's a hard one. Dougal's got plenty of blue mana open. I mean, 2 is enough for 2 counterspells. It looks like he's going to go for it. So we'll see how it goes. We just have the draw here as well. It was a City of Traders. Yeah, I mean, okay, cool. We're just going to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really under any pressure, so if he wants to just, like, depending on what's in his hand, if he's got enough gas and enough tools to just go off multiple times, he just may as well force Dougal to have those answers. And obviously the black rituals that make you all those black mana for your combos can equally be used to fuel your Thoughtseizers.
Yeah,
So-
that's very true. Well, if Dougal had the counterspell, he'd probably be pretty incentivized to do it on the ritual because he's used his black mana to do so. It was kind of his fixing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised. I guess the issue is that Dougal couldn't really respond to the ritual with a dig through time and try and find a counterspell because the dig through time has cost him all of his blue mana,
Yeah,
and so
yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah,
there's honestly not much. I guess in this instance, casting the dig through time in response to the Thoughtseize is sort of just protecting the dig through time because Dougal probably suspects that's the card from his hand that would get taken, which speaks pretty dire things about his likelihood to die this turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless he's sitting on a Force of Will, I think he's pretty likely to be dead.
It was probably, perhaps he was even looking for a Force of Will.
Yeah, maybe. The problem is, if you find Force of Will at this point, and you Force of Will Thoughtseize, it's done its job, because there's no Force of Will in your hand. And if you don't Force of Will the Thoughtseize, they take it with the Thoughtseize, and you're still dead. So...
getting very punished by his own Blood Moon, but I think it had to happen, of course, because of the quality of JP's cards at the moment have been able to push through the Blood Moon, but he probably would have been able to do it a whole lot earlier if he had that mana available to him earlier.
Yeah, I think the issue here wasn't so much the Blood Moon punishing Dougal, because Blood Moon did buy Dougal probably somewhere between 1 and 3 turns.
Absolutely.
I think the issue was more that Dougal just didn't draw any kind of meaningful threat. You know, the Shadowcaster doesn't even have a single point of power.
Yeah.
It can't actually threaten JP's life total at all. If it was a Trinian Nemesis or a Vendilion Clique, then I think Dougal would be in a much better spot this game. Because that Shadowcaster has sat around for a pretty large number of turns, not doing very much with their life.
That's very true. Yeah, protection, I think... Well, here comes bonus round, if I'm not mistaken.
That is indeed bonus round.
Ugh, new tech from... newish tech, I guess, from Battle Bond. Giving your spells double cast until end of turn, if I'm not mistaken.
It actually gives everyone spells, that text.
Oh, so lucky!
Yeah, because obviously as a Battle Bond card, it has to interact with your teammates' cards.
Of course.
And so every single spell cast by anyone gets copied.
Yeah. And it looks like... yep. Drawing 2 cards, seeing the same hand twice. He knows the coast is clear doubly, so
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's just got free reign to go off here.
Everyone knows if you have a second copy of Cataxian Probe, you're supposed to target yourself. So you can double check you've got all the pieces you need to go off.
I do like that. It's quite possible that he did do that, but the style points required is pretty big. Now, casting Manamorphose is actually generating him mana because the bonus round, the second copy doesn't cost him anything, obviously.
Well, he's still kind of down mana because bonus round costs 3.
Yeah. I think he'll be able to come back from it, though, eventually, especially with
so?
that Yorgwill in hand.
Alright. Well, 2 Yorgwills as well. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that seems pretty busted, actually. This Wheel of Fortune was much better for him than the sort of cards that he had last game.
Yeah, I mean, the position that he is now in, I suppose if he, falls asleep, he might lose. But I can't think of many other ways in which he could manage to lose himself this game from this position.
He's probably in a pretty good position. He's also, using that mana to sort of filter, get some more red mana.
This is absolutely disgusting with bonus round. Look at all the mana it's generating.
Oh god, yeah, that's some serious play. Yeah, it was interesting to see how much game these Battle Bond cards gave Highlander because, I mean, no one really got to play with them that much. They're probably a little too weak for Legacy. With I think there was a couple of cards that made a bit of a breakthrough, but otherwise, it's basically. Highlander gets all these fun pieces now, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of always the deal with these sort of weird sets. You know, like your commanders and your conspiracies and your battle bonds and stuff like that. Is that usually the cards aren't gonna make a huge splash in Legacy or Vintage. You know, the only real exceptions would be like Leovold and True Name.
Yeah.
But a lot of those cards are going to see play in Highlander or your other kind of various offbeat Eternal formats because they provide a weird niche that isn't really filled, which, you know, for something like 7-point Highlander is really important because of the singleton rule. You know, where it's not a world where you can play 4 brainstorms. So if Wizards prints in the next commander set a slightly worse brainstorm, you're kind of incentivized to play it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It looks like where we double cast the bonus round, which is basically fan freaking tastic. So every copy is now 4.
This game is it's 2, right? It's been cast twice, so you copy each spell twice. So there's 3 copies of every spell. This game is is incredibly over. JP is just taking some additional game actions. Perhaps he doesn't actually have the tendrils in hand at this point, or
he has drawn a lot of cards, and he did use that Grim Tutor.
He just wants to show more of his sweet deck off. Equally possible. Yeah, he was just digging for tendrils. All right. Yeah. He's not
I think just planning to see if you could support the Aria of Flame if you do decide to play it.
Yeah, maybe
that's important.
Just, getting some data.
Yeah, that's all right. So he Storm count 16 for that one. So a very neat 32 life lost by Dougal in that the one string of events, which was pretty important.
Yeah, I mean maybe JP pointed a couple of copies at himself.
Who knows? Stay neutral.
Yeah. I mean, I believe tendrils can also target creatures, so it could have gone after that Staticaster.
Now, does each additional tendrils copy get a storm trigger as well?
No, because you only
get it
when you cast.
Yeah, cool. So it's not completely insane. It's not 4 times tendrils, but you do get an extra 3 copies of tendrils on top of that.
Right, I see what you're saying. You're asking if the bonus round copies get, So the issue is if it was printed like that, and the bonus round copies triggered Storm, then the Storm copies would also trigger Storm. So Storm can't be templated like that.
Okay, of course.
Otherwise it would be a little bit of a disaster.
Yeah, it seems pretty bad.
Tendrils unfortunately can't target creatures, so it's JP and Dougal are the only legal targets though.
That is a shame.
Yeah.
Although, if you were playing Battle Bond, you could target even your teammate.
That is true, actually. It's kind of a shame, in my opinion. I think Battle Bond was a really fun set, and I didn't really get to live very long in the sun because it was just kind of one of those little side sets, and they have pretty short life cycles.
Yeah, I think Unstable
yeah.
came out pretty shortly after that as well.
Yeah,
and that came made a big splash as well.
Weeks, yeah. Battlebond was way more fun than Unstable.
Battlebond was really fun.
Don't at me.
That was one where I went with my partner, and she was really into Control at that point, and I was like, hey, if you want to play Two-Headed Giant, you can play no win con Control, and I can play idiot green-red creatures, and that deck was very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do. I think there was a lot of really clever design in that set on how things interacted with teammates and opponents, and how those cards were templated so that they would still work in like multiplayer free-for-alls or in 1v1s, and they'd still function in a good way.
Yeah. I definitely liked how it sort of changed the typography of some of the templating rather of some of the cards, because now you can target other players, including your friends. Going back to the game at hand, though, it looks like Dougal's gone for that quick young Pyromancer. This is the threat that you were talking about before, which is what he needed much earlier in game 2.
Yeah, definitely. So now if he kind of leaves up a bit of mana to... That's pretty nice, especially given JP's start. Well. But it means that if from here Dougal's throwing out counterspells, throwing out cantrips to clean up his hand, he's generating even more of a clock. That's a pretty nice answer to a Blood Moon, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, not quite familiar enough with the eggs to tell from the artwork exactly which colours that one generates.
It's red. It's the Rakdos one.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure what it makes. Shadow Blood, makes Rakdos. So,
all right.
So still obviously not hugely great because you're only getting black mana out of it, and you still get the red mana that you would get anyway. But I wonder if Dougal's going to be a bit of a spicy boy, and I guess he doesn't have the chance.
And get it blasted, yeah, that is quite spicy actually.
That was an interesting choice by Dougal. Lots of non-instants and sorceries coming out of Dougal's side. Probably using that Dak Faden to dig for his 4th land drop, which I did notice he just missed.
Well, he was probably going to take the egg. I feel like tapping out to cast Dak Faden and then not taking the egg in that instance is incredibly brave.
Yeah.
Because you kind of saw last game that a single black mana was all JP needed to win through a Blood Moon.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty handy victory as well, considering all his lands only tapped for red, but because of the Metamorphoses and the stars and the eggs, it worked out pretty well for him. Yeah,
Dougal's kind of sitting on a bit of a rough hand here. Spellsnare and Red Elemental Blast only kind of interact with JP. They only hit, a few cards here and there.
I wonder if it's even worth... I mean, Metamorphosis is definitely a better proposition, but maybe just running out that Direfleet Daredevil on a cantrip or Gitaxian Probe.
Well, are you saying you Direfleet the Metamorphose out of JP's graveyard?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Dougal's getting another turn in order to make that play.
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? With Lotus Petal in JP's hand, and I think I see another bonus round as well. But, this could be lights out.
It just seems unlikely that JP would commit his Metamorphose unless he thought he was pretty likely to win.
Yeah.
Metamorphose is just an incredibly powerful tool to fight through a Blood Moon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so it looks like he's going to try and go off now by your analysis, and he's definitely thinking about it. He's got those 2 cards that are face down from the Preordain, just trying to figure out where he wants them to sit, but looks like he's going to put one to the bottom, which seems pretty reasonable, and we'll see what he can sort of cobble together from this board state, but hopefully he's not going to strain himself too hard, because it's pretty early in the game still, with only 3 land drops being made.
Yeah, I mean, he does also know that he has a bit of time, because he has looked at Dougal's hand, and he knows there's only a few things that actually interact with him in any kind of meaningful fashion. So it's possible that he wouldn't go all in here, but I think that it's just that once you've committed your Metamorphose, I don't think you really want to turn back unless you're absolutely forced to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with this gamble, this is definitely a line that would definitely lend itself to him trying to win this turn. So we'll see if this gamble becomes fruitful for him, because the likelihood of the card that he wanted being hit is pretty low, but not 0.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if he's good at gamble or he gambles like Angus Mackay and always has a card he doesn't want discarded.
Yeah, Sorcery Speed and Tomb has been very bad for me in the past, that's for sure. He did accidentally reveal the Pyretic Ritual, which looks like he's going to have quite the amount of mana in hand.
Yeah, I think
with
it's
this
just
Lotus Petal as well.
Players not necessarily being the most clear on which card was which.
Yeah.
It's for 1 and 6, but I don't think it's really going to matter.
Yeah, I don't think he minds revealing it too much.
Well, he did just cast it.
Yeah, he's just going to cast it now. So 4 mana in pool. Going to crack it for Rakdos to draw a card, and then, well, good luck to JP from here. I mean, Stormcounter 6. He's definitely got a lot of potential to make it all the way, but he's not just punching it off as fast as possible. He knows the coast is clear, so I think he's
I believe I have a feeling that he's sitting on Yorgwell.
Okay.
He might just be trying to get all of the value out of it as possible.
Yeah.
So he was just putting in like thought into how he can get every single piece of mana out of every card in his graveyard before he actually drops the Yorgwell. Because obviously, once you cast the Yorgwell, everything gets exiled.
Yeah, you don't really have another chance after that. So this looks pretty good. I mean, he's got a bunch of rituals. It might end up being a 50-50 split on what he's going to gamble for, because everything's really cheap.
He does. Well, there's no real point in gambling, because whatever you gamble for is going to be. I mean, I suppose
once he gets a card
you've got a Gataxian Probe and a Metamorphose and a Preordain.
Yeah.
But you kind of want those to hit, because gambling it's pretty brave. But you do have, Metamorphose, Preordain, Gataxian Probe is 3 draws and a scry 2 in order to hit a card that does something even before you have to gamble.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of chances to get there.
Yeah. I think a little bit of missequencing. Maybe I didn't see it myself, but the Cabal ritual not netting him the 5 mana as he was hoping, because it was only at 6 when it was on the when it was cast.
Possibly. I also think it's seems probable that the Lotus Petal should have made the blue instead of the Metamorphose, because then you get to just look just that little bit deeper, because you get the scry before all of your draws.
For sure.
But I think that it's still definitely a fine position for JP. He's still got a lot of cards here that will allow him to convert this into a victory. And not putting both to the bottom is usually a pretty good sign. Yeah.
I mean, running out of... Yeah, it looks like we're going for the gamble here. He has 4 cards in hand, I believe. Maybe just 3. So he definitely could whiff off this gamble. It's going to be something good. I assume it's... by the looks of his mana situation, probably just a Tendrils of Agony to win the game. I guess if you want to take more game actions or you be a little bit more cautious, you could try something else. But
there's no point being cautious. You looked at Dougal's hand twice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, cautious of you misclicking, of course.
Sure. The old manual dexterity error.
Yeah, it looks like the Tendrils of Agony getting binned here, which is going to go to exile, so it's going to make it a lot harder for JP to win. Possibly just maybe getting the loss from here. Yeah, we can cast that off the Lotus Petal. No? I guess not. I guess we didn't make green with the Lotus Petal, and I think we're probably just whiffing at this point. That's okay. Tarmogoyf is...
It's definitely a 2-3,
2-3, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So yeah, unfortunately the gamble didn't get him the win, but I mean, it was literally a gamble, so... Can't get too upset about it, but Tarmogoyf maybe... I mean, Baral's in as well. It just doesn't look very good. He's going to have to spend a whole lot of time to rebuild, and then Dougal will probably have the requisite cards he needs to defend himself from JP refueling in the future.
Yeah, I mean... It's not impossible that Tarmogoyf can carry the game home from this position.
Mm-hmm.
It's already... Got a little bit of power and toughness under its belt, and if JP needs to, he can pull the old crack star as a combat trick maneuver.
One of my favorites.
But it's not looking great for the Storm player here.
It's unfortunate that because we have the elementals online now, it can just be kind of infinite chump blocking. Not that you would chump block, not that you would need to chump block that much anyway, because I don't think JP is going to be attacking into this board, but definitely.
Well, he definitely can, because Baral's a 1/3, so Baral can block the tokens and the young pyromancer just fine.
Okay.
So I feel like JP's pretty incentivized to attack.
We got instant sorcery artifact planeswalker now. That's pretty good.
Yep.
Starting to get there again. Yeah, so just going to chump block with the elemental. Seems reasonable. I mean, that Tamagotchi did get up a whole lot thanks to those artifacts, but it looks like Dukes might be considering cracking the Tormoid script.
Yeah. I think he was considering doing it to himself because it would hit more card types, but then decided he's better off hitting JP.
This seems reasonable. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot in there to begin with, but you definitely want to keep yourself open for your... I mean, he has Diefleet Daredevil in his hand.
Yeah.
Which is a thing, I suppose, but now with
I think
gone...
after the Yawgmoth's Will, there just wasn't anything really to Diefleet out of JP's graveyard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, looks not very good. I think it was just a Pyroblast in the graveyard, so probably not a huge deal in using the Diefleet for that one, but yeah, I mean, pressure's on.
Diefleet to Pyroblast. Pyroblast can't target anything, so that would be a nice token.
That's true, free token.
Yeah, it's a lot of mana to commit to making a 2/1 and a 1/1, but it's a line that is available.
Alright,
looks like the old Ambush Viper in response to Wheel of Fortune. It's a bit interesting because it means he's really now leaning on that Blood Moon to not die. Because, I mean, even with Tendrils gone, JP could still string together an Empty the Warrens win, or he could potentially Brain Freeze Dougal out. You know, Brain Freeze typically targets the Storm player to fuel Past in Flames and Yawgmoth's Will, but if you don't have a Tendrils, you can just Brain Freeze your opponent for their library if your Storm gets high enough.
Yeah, that Wheel of Fortune was definitely such a fantastic draw for him because he was in top deck mode at that point, and now he's just able to... Doesn't have to spend a lot of time to rebuild anymore. Yeah,
I mean, and he should have at least one turn, maybe as much as two, but he also just might want to try and... If he's gonna have another shot at winning the game, he might want to just do it now while Dougal's tapped out, before he can untap with those fresh 7 cards in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he put the Storm dice down, so
that's about sending a message.
Yeah, that's right. And he did draw the Black Lotus as well, so we got. I see a Ritual in hand. I also see the Black Lotus, so could be a good time to go off. I mean, you gotta try and get lucky again.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't put the Storm Die down when you go like turn 1 Noble Hierarch, you're just not you're not really establishing dominance over your opponent.
Yeah, it looks like JP's not going to go for it this turn. Maybe just counting his mana out and realizing that he doesn't quite have enough. But the Storm count was at 2 if you include the Snapcaster Mage. But yeah, probably just doesn't want to risk it. He thinks probably he's got a better chance if he untaps with this Duress that he has in hand. I think he might have a Remand in hand as well.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
a bit of a defensive hand.
It's a lot of pieces to protect yourself. And I think with the 2 defensive pieces, Dougal opting to pass the turn here, which is... I mean, I know he can't force that much damage through if he attacks, because Tamagotchi can block.
Do some, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if he attacked with everything, he would lose the Pyromancer. If he still forced 4 damage through, which would put JP to 5, and then he could attack again, which would put him to 3, which is Lightning Bolt range.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like at a certain point you have to stop valuing your young Pyromancer, and you have to value putting your opponent's life total to 0.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a skill that takes a lot of time to getting used to. I think also, like, if Duke hasn't versed a Storm player before, then... Because there's not a whole lot of Storm in the format and even in the meta, especially in Brisbane. But, you know, he might just be really trying to keep his resources high and just play deep control until he can get there, probably not realizing that his opponent's already on 9 life.
Sure. I think it's also a kind of a trap that's pretty easy to fall into, is that thinking that counterspells are really good against Storm,
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
usually it's actually the opposite is true. That the Storm player is kind of favored against counterspells because the kind of cantrips and the pieces and the hate that you're stringing together to build up your Storm count are actually cheaper than your opponent's counterspells.
Yeah,
And they have to leave mana open up all the time, but you don't. So you can just cast. You can cast out your Barrage, you can cast out your Tarmogoyfs, you can cast out your defense grids. You don't care. But if your opponent ever taps out, they have to be worried that you're just going to combo off. So
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
actually in a pretty good spot as the Storm player against control, and you're kind of more worried about the permanent hate of things like an Arcane Laboratory coming out from your opponent than you
Yeah.
are about a Remand or a Mana Leak.
yeah, absolutely. Looks like he's gonna spell pierce this, leaving leaving JP to actually crack the Black Lotus if he wants to continue to storm off, but it's probably reasonable. I mean, spell pierce on the Black Lotus or the spell pierce on the Ritual can be like just enough, but you gotta be lucky.
Yeah, I mean, he also just may as well use the spell pierce, because obviously it's not going to be any more meaningful later when there's all that extra red mana from Seething Song.
For sure.
So you want to use it on the colored mana from Lotus. If that's the most relevant thing you can do for a single blue mana, you may as well make the extra token, because now he has 4. He's pretty incentivized to just attack into Tarmogoyf if JP can't go off here.
Yeah, it looks like he's just remanded the spell pierce back to his hand as opposed to just paying for the spell pierce so that it can go to the graveyard. You may as well just draw a card.
It
For
also
the
lets
same
you draw a
price.
card, so
Also, he's had no risk of him casting spell pierce again this turn.
yeah, I think it's a pretty reasonable play to cantrip off that remand.
Yeah, for sure. So he's made the land drop. I think he has City of Traders in hand, which he's not going to be able to cast. Not that it does that much anyway under the Blood Moon, but it's kind of shows the resiliency. I mean, he had to get lucky with that Wheel of Fortune, and he had to be patient, and he had to de-tilt as well, which I think was really important from that first Tendrils getting discarded, because he's definitely back in this game.
Yeah, I mean, having the Tendrils discarded to the gamble when it was a 1 in 5 is definitely a bit rough. It's something that would be pretty easy to tilt from, but it's not a game loss to have your first win condition discarded from Storm. It's a resilient deck. You can rebuild.
Yeah.
We'll just see if JP can finish rebuilding before Dougal can put together enough elementals to win the game himself.
Yeah. I think we might be okay here. Past the Flame's obviously not as good as... Ooh, here we go. Alright, another wheel. He's just gonna bolt... So you had the bolt in hand, so... I mean, if Dukes can untap, he can definitely win the game.
Yeah, I mean, if he just untaps, attacks with everything, he gets 7 points of damage through, and he wins.
Yeah. See if it's enough.
Yeah. I mean...
We discarded we just discarded some bad cards, so it looks like that's going to be a good set again for JP, but he's going to need some eggs to wheel through and fix his color unless he's got more red rituals, but I think he's running pretty low on those red rituals by now.
Yeah, I mean, anything kind of on top of the Past in Flames in that graveyard also doesn't currently have flashback.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
unfortunately.
that means all that's there is the Remand. I can't see what's under the Chromatic Star, but Remand having flashback is certainly not the most exciting thing for the Storm player. There's
Definitely
obviously, anyone who's seen Storm around a couple of times has probably seen a Storm player Remand their own Storm spell and onto the trigger and then recast it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a luxury for people who have a low Storm count and a lot of blue mana,
That's right.
which isn't really a thing that JP finds himself in Exos
Definitely not.
of
Definitely
right
not.
now. It's also usually something you have to do with Grape Shot.
Yeah,
Just to
yeah,
get that
definitely a
Storm
very
count a little higher.
common line in modern Storm, more so where you're just remanding your own grape shot so that you can recast it.
Yeah, JP does appear to have a Mox Diamond and a land, so he's got at least one piece of colored mana to try and keep going.
Yeah. We'll see if it's enough. He's doing a lot of thinking. I think this might not have been a very good hit for him. He does have that Grim Tutor on the far left, I believe one of his only white border cards. And he does have a Doomsday, but all these things cost a little bit more than the mana that he has available to him.
Yeah, I think Grim Tutor costs an awful. Ooh, I mean, the
We can go to our second main phase, right?
yeah, he can go to the
that's
second main
fantastic.
phase. Well, it only makes 2 mana, unfortunately.
Oh, true.
Because of Volcanic Island is currently only a volcanic mountain, and there's not really an island. It's just pretending.
Yeah, that's true. This is very unfortunate. It looks like we're just dead here. Actually, the Carpet of Flowers. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the 2 colored mana from Carpet wasn't really enough.
Wasn't gonna be enough. Yeah, that is unfortunate because he does have Grim Tutor in hand, but again, that's just like you don't really have the mana to cast it. Doomsday didn't really work. Yeah, unfortunately, he just couldn't string together the win from that second Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, really punished by Gamble, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the price of the combo deck. You win, you lose. That's just how it goes. Thank you so much for watching round 1 of our Eternal weekend at Next Level Games in Dandenong. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned for more Highlander content coming in the future, and we will see you next time.
See ya.